Perfect. Um, I can edit this part out, so don't worry. Anyways, to start off, I'd say we all quickly introduce ourselves to give all the listeners a quick idea of who we are. So to start off, my name is Manuel. I study psychology right now here in Valencia, Spain, and I also founded Harbor Visibility, which basically the main purpose is to help out independent therapists to gain more visibility with their own website and not have to rely on directories or other platforms, third platforms, to gain clients organically over their website. So you can find me on Harbor Visibility, my website, or on my LinkedIn, which is just Manuel Otter, like the animal, Otter. Exactly.
Thank
Great.
you, Manuel. And I'm a beneficiary of your services. So I appreciate what you do for counselors and therapists. I want to say that. My name is Ali. I'm a psychologist. I've worked in different fields of psychology, mostly schools as a school counselor. And I'm also trained as a therapist with logotherapy, existential analysis, and most recently, IFS, internal family system. And I've been dedicated to my private practice for 6 years now. I work with clients from all over the world. I do therapy online and in person. You can find me on my website on the notes of the episode, and you can find me on my profile, which is also linked to the notes of the episode if you're interested in knowing more about my training and my approach.
Great. Okay, thank you, Tali and Manuel. My name is Cynthia Clark, or Cindy Clark. Some people know me by that name. And I'm a licensed Canadian therapist. I've spent my adult years, really graduated from university and left Canada. And I've lived in many countries, Colombia, Croatia, Germany, Indonesia, Poland, Taiwan. So really, it's been a beautiful journey so far, if I can use that word. And if you want to learn more about me and my background, which has been in counseling, both in international schools and in private practice, you can find me at my website, which is Cynthia Clark Counseling. Counseling has two L's. And you can also find me on a platform, which Tali is also on. It's called It's Complicated, and it's a really special platform where there are many therapists who also specialize in working with expatriates and globally mobile professionals. So it's a really special platform where you can directly contact me on that. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now. So great to be here.
Perfect. So the topic we wanted to discuss today actually works perfect with the intro, because as you will probably notice, most or the three of us, I didn't mention it yet, but the three of us have experience living abroad. So to quickly note for myself, I also grew up all throughout the globe when I was younger, born in Abu Dhabi, lived in Japan, in Korea, in the US, um, now in Spain, lived in Austria, of course, where I'm from. So also have that expat experience. And what we wanted to touch on today was, yeah, what that really feels like and what the word home means for people who do travel a lot, who live abroad, who live in different countries. And to begin with that, I guess the first question to everyone would be, what does home mean to you guys?
Yeah, that's a big question, Manuel. I you hear this quote of home is where love is, where you have your, I don't know, your family, your connections, where you feel like you belong. I would use the word belonging because I think that's a term that we will discuss today. But nowadays, I see people moving around so much. So you're not necessarily living near your loved ones, but that can still be your home. So I would add to that that home is where you can build your routine. Home is where you can find purpose. Home is where you can build your own little rituals. Yeah, and we will talk a lot more about that because I think that's a lot of the struggles that I see in my clients when they are transitioning to a new country or new city or new job, like this idea of what's home at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Yeah, all of that resonates with me, and I agree with all of that. My list of countries sounds very long, and perhaps it is. Maybe a difference when I started traveling this way for work. We really didn't even have the term global nomad. There were no global nomad visas, I don't believe, at the time. We really were flying to a destination and we were very fortunate, very embraced by a community immediately. Working in the international school system, you were just we were fortunate to be taken care of by each of these communities where we found ourselves. So in that sense, home did become often around the school, the international school. And I don't know, Manuel, you might have experienced some similarities as a young person, right? In some of these
Mhm.
places you were, but often the community was revolving around the school. And then what does home mean? I mean, it's such an interesting concept. I remember very strongly we would have still been in our 20s. When I say we, I'm talking about my husband and I, who started at the beginning in our early 20s. So we still would have been in our 20s, but I think we were on country number 3, and we had a dear friend look at us one summer in Canada and say, "When are you coming home?" You know? And we kind of looked at each other and we thought, home is different now for us than what it
Mm.
was, 6 years prior. Home had been Canada, still is Canada, of course, on so many levels. But we had grown, we had expanded our thinking about what home could be. Um, yeah, so I'll
Yeah,
start with that, and
yeah,
yeah, let's
yeah,
keep going.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything you guys mentioned, I can definitely relate. And my experience, I would say, was a bit different because I grew up that way. And so I didn't know anything else. And so
Mm.
it's interesting for me to analyze how that impacted me now, having that past experience of moving around all the time. And yeah, I would say it's interesting because I remember moving back to Austria and having friends there who lived their whole life in Vienna, right? Um, Tell me how home is just, where they have all their school friends from when they were small, their little community, everything they grew up there, everything they know, everyone they know, people, places, it was there. And I never could really relate to that.
Yeah.
And so, as someone who grew up that way, what I noticed is that disconnect in a way where I felt like I didn't belong because
Mm.
I was different in that regard.
Yeah.
So, it really was a part of my identity, the one that for me, always growing up, home was genuinely just the family, right? My brothers, my parents, not a place. And for most people, it's just obvious that home means a physical location. And
Yeah.
because of my upbringing, for me, if I were to define home, it really is like I think both of you mentioned, but more a place where you belong. It's not generally tied to one place. It could be anywhere as long as you have that feeling of community wherever it is. So that's how I exactly with that experience would define home. But speaking of that, how it was hard for me, I think And I can speak from experience from how it was growing up that way. But I also know a lot of people, they just, during later in life, like I do now,
Yeah.
they have this expat life where they move around a lot and it can get, I would say, lonely for people, right? Because they don't have that sense of belonging. They don't know how to fit in. Maybe there's a language barrier. There's all these new obstacles. Of course, it's also a lot of upsides, but I don't think a lot of people realize this. It's more glamorized.
Absolutely.
Um, I
And
guess
I
we
did
could go
want
a
to
bit
jump
more.
in and
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I did want to also really to agree with you there, Manuel, and make sure
Mhm.
that even though a lot of my memories can fall very much on the positive side of finding community, that doesn't mean it was easy, right?
Mhm.
And that's where this piece comes in, right? How can we help? How can we help those that are living this lifestyle reinvent themselves, find the strength, find the adaptability that's innate in us, but is not easy,
Mhm.
no matter how much a community will be supportive, right?
Mhm.
There's still culture shock. There's still moments in your seasons of being an expat that are harder than others. Holidays, anniversaries, things you can, anyway, we could go on and on and on. So, yes, there's so much positive in
Yes.
this experience, and
Mhm.
yet that does not mean that it's easy. And I agree with you that it gets glamorized, right? Woo! I'm going away on this amazing
Yeah.
adventure, and family and friends think you're living this fantastic life. And the bottom line is you still have to deal with all the things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
100%.
And now in a
Yeah.
new language and a new culture that you don't
Mhm.
understand, and without a foundational support system. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I also wanted to go back to the initial question of what home is, because I
Mhm.
think home is also like a space where you feel safe,
Mm.
physically, emotionally. And yes, you can be in a country where I mean, you grew up like that, Manuel. Like you can be in a
Mhm.
country where you don't speak the language, you're probably not part of the culture.
Mhm.
But there is this safety provided by your family, you know, and I
Mhm.
think emotionally and
Mhm.
psychologically, um, home has to do a lot with where do we find our nervous system uh,
Mhm.
regulated, you know, or co-regulated with other human beings. And people speak a lot about that feeling, you know, like this feels
Mhm.
like home, and it doesn't necessarily has to do with the location, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, and just quickly adding on to that, very good point that you made because that experience, you're right, with having lived abroad and remembering honestly just positive things because of that safety environment I
Yeah.
had with my parents, and now I can compare it to when I moved abroad for the first time to study alone. And it was a crazy difference. And I think it can show us or give us a bit more insight into what it's like then and the difference and how you can, even if you live abroad, even if you have that expat life, feel very safe and good if these factors are met, where safety, belonging, if these things are there, you can still, thrive. And
And I wonder, Manuel, if your
Mhm.
experiences as a third culture kid
Mhm.
provided you with some tools where when you went alone to Spain
Mhm.
for the first time without that sort of that safety net of family, I
Mhm.
wonder if you maybe were a little better equipped to
Mhm.
find the ways to make this new place feel like home, you know?
Very good question. Yeah, because I definitely have that feeling. Even though at the same time, I noticed how it's way harder when you move somewhere alone. When you have family,
Yeah.
you just have that safety net with you. You don't need, you're with family.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, 100% that experience, I have experienced where I go on vacation with friends and I immediately go into where can I find a coffee shop? Where can I as in where can I feel at home? Where is a gym where I can maybe go work out? I never go in tourist mode because whenever I go to somewhere, a new place, my mind's adapted to how can I make this home? So 100%. And now with time, it's also gotten way easier. I also moved cities in Spain for university.
Mm.
And then when I came here, I immediately looked at, okay, where are the groceries? Where can I go train? Where's everything, the essentials to live? And made myself at home in a few days. So yes, it's still hard, but that experience definitely made me way more adaptable, where some other people, for the first time, it's going to be way more overwhelming. And for me, exactly, my mind, it's just adapted to that, where I just,
Yeah.
yeah, make a place home as fast as possible. But also to note, the emotional part still needs catching up. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but
Mm.
everything I said doesn't mean that I'll feel safe or emotional. It's the basis where I navigate the city and I understand, okay, this is where I find everything. So I don't feel like a tourist anymore, but you still need connections, friendships, all that, and that obviously takes time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 And there's a word in English that doesn't exist in Spanish the same way, which is being homesick.
Mm.
I think
Hmm.
in German you use Heimweh or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yes.
Uh, which is like your body feels the lack of that
Hmm.
safety or that
Hmm.
like comfortable, warm, cozy place.
Hmm.
Um, and you can be homesick, and there's these symptoms, and I don't think people realize when they move, because there's also a lot of romanticization about the idea of moving to another place,
Hmm.
like it's this new beginning, new life. It's so, yeah, it's romanticized. But
Hmm.
then I don't think people realize, and I like how you put it, like what it takes to catch up emotionally with the experience. And I think that's where this homesick element comes in.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Mm.
It's so connected to culture shock. So we're often taught about culture shock, or people who are living this life, especially in international schools, let's say, or companies, they might provide like a workshop when they're doing their onboarding, to new staff to help
Mm.
them try to understand what they might experience especially the first year of living in a new country. And culture shock is one that truly has a lot of studies around it. And you can give people sort of the time frame, almost not to the day, but pretty close to it. And they'll come back to you later and go, oh my gosh, you were so right. I had no idea. Everything was great. We have a honeymoon phase. Everything's exciting and new. A little bit about what you intuitively know how to do, Manuel, which is jump into all the things, get yourself involved,
Hmm.
and then the dip happens. And that I sort of am feeling like, I need to emotionally catch up and um, to be a little vulnerable. Mine used to be, I literally, and Tali, what you said made me think about this cozy comfort. I literally would have to crawl into bed like on a weekend and put the covers over me
Yeah.
and I didn't know what was happening really. It took me maybe a couple of years to understand. Every October, it didn't matter where I was or where I had just moved to, I would hit this dip, and
Yeah.
if you stay in a place for a long time, then the dip will usually be smaller. It doesn't mean it won't happen at different times in your experience, but I think it's so true, and people from home typically don't really want to hear it, or even if they tried, they wouldn't really be able to understand. So you can feel a combination of maybe some shame for even complaining that this is
Hmm.
happening, or you can feel quite isolated in your experience because you might feel like there's really something wrong with me. Why can't I make this work?
Hmm.
And so the emotions are real and they're there, and we often push them down.
Hmm.
Yeah, like we do in many situations. But certainly this is another one. So.
Hmm.
And there's this other element of when you live abroad in another country for a period of time and you go back to what you call home,
Mm.
and a lot of people say this doesn't feel like home anymore.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like you're somehow lost in between because maybe you lived in a country for 20, 30 years and then you moved to another country for 5 or 10 years. And when you come back, a lot of people have this shock.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's technically called reverse culture shock,
For
and
shock,
it
which
truly needs as much or more support. It's just
yeah,
that we often miss it. Yeah, we don't think to miss it as and we don't think to maybe help the
yes,
person who's reintegrating back into their passport or home country. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's
100%.
like embracing this new identity that you bring with you to your home country when you're going back,
Mhm.
because you have changed so much, but yet your roots and your connections may still be there.
That,
So,
that topic about identity, I want to also quickly um, talk about that because what we just discussed is, validating that the experience of homesickness and living that expat life brings, these natural feelings that might not be easy to handle. But then also, like we just mentioned, it also does shape our identity in a way, right? Living abroad for a long time, dealing with this. I can speak from experience too, how you sometimes even feel, and this is a second layer to living the expat life, is how living abroad genuinely, because you're exposed to new experiences, new people, it really does shape your identity to the point when you go back home, not only does the reverse culture shock because you're used to a different culture. But I also think the people you used to be friends with, family, when you live in the same place for a long time, from experience, people, might not know or remember the person you were before. And you might seem, you might feel like, how is this possible? But I genuinely think that identity does shift um, after experiences like that. And I think that's also an important topic to maybe quickly talk about how that happens. And I'm not sure if that has happened to you guys, but definitely has with me, where you notice how you just adapt, and with that, your identity shifts. And I don't want to say you're a different person because it sounds so drastic, but it sometimes does
Mhm.
feel like that, right? And
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about how it feels like. So I'm not sure. Did you guys have that experience with the whole identity feeling
Mm.
changing?
Definitely. You're making me think about something specific, though
Hmm.
there are many examples I could use. But, I became a parent in another country,
Mm.
completely on the other side of the world. I had two babies that were born in Indonesia. So while all my friends from home were having their children in Canada and often their town where they, had grown up or certainly probably had family, let's say, much closer than I did. Um, I was having my children literally 13-hour time zone away,
Hmm.
and I don't believe I quite acknowledged that at the time, but certainly when I reflect back, I can see a lot of things about that, how just my identity as a mother became very different. I also had children in a culture that had sort of different practices around bringing up children. One, for
Hmm.
example, was you don't put them down. You don't crying. No, you carry them with you all the time. In fact, in Indonesia, they have these beautiful batik slings that babies are just always right by someone. If it's not the mother, it's some other lovely person, that's helping you in your extended family. They often have large families. So in my case, we were very fortunate to have household help, which was another thing that changed my identity. It was very different, let's say, from had I stayed in Canada, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, and Manuel, thank you for asking it in that way because it's just one example.
yes.
Hmm.
Something
I
shifted
think
for
for
me.
me, I would go back to a more recent experience. Like I moved a lot when I was a child and a teenager, but in the same country. So there were cultural differences, but it was not the same as moving around the world.
Mhm.
Uh, but I recently moved to Germany like 3 years ago, and I don't think I've ever asked myself that many questions about my identity. Uh,
Mhm.
and I hear that from my clients as like an existential crisis,
Mm.
like who am I? What does it mean to be in my case, a Latino woman living in a random city in Germany? What does that say about my identity? Like there's so many labels that people put on me because of where I come from, which I don't identify with necessarily. So I
Mhm.
think comes with this like shaking and questioning who you are, and how much of your identity is shaped by your family, your culture, like the language, even. So I think a lot of what I work with expats and people who move, like now you call it nomads, I think
Mm.
a lot. And a lot of the symptoms that some people have, and they maybe confuse it with a huge depression or anxiety, has a lot to do with this shaking of your identity, like I don't know who I am anymore because
Mhm.
my like all the things that explains my identity back in this other place, they don't exist anymore. So this is I mean, I experienced it recently, and I think I resonate with a lot of my clients when they
Yeah.
go through that as well.
Yeah. And I think Tully, it brings up something that I just coincidentally came upon a couple of weeks ago, actually, and this concept of how to create islands of certainty. And that is when you're questioning everything and everything might feel off center, flipped, chaotic, wondering, who you are, what you've done, is this creation of small, and you mentioned it earlier too, Tully, like the idea of rituals, the idea of having routines, right? So islands of certainty when we're in sort of this chaos to allow our brain to just stop threat, like scanning for threat, and go, ah, yes, she has her coffee every morning in this way. And she,
Yeah,
oh, you sit quietly with your coffee. So that would just be like one example. It could be something really basic, or it might be something more like a ritual you bring in that you had back in your home country, right?
yeah,
uh, Bake a certain Christmas cookie every year.
yeah,
I think whether people like it or not, I bake the same Christmas cookie, like this island of certainty around a holiday time, let's say. And just an island where you can just sort of land on and feel solid ground under your feet and know that you're going to be jumping back into the water and whatnot. We can go on and on with this metaphor, but yeah, I really like that concept. I think it's something I want to research more because it
yeah,
it really is based in some research, so I found it
yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I love that the Islands of Certainty because it just hit it
Yeah.
really resonated with me, and I definitely remember even now recently when I moved how, like you said, these small routines,
Hmm.
even when you feel totally off and overwhelmed, you drink your morning coffee, or it reminds me why I even mentioned finding out the local gym, because
Yes.
going to the gym, having a good workout session, my body's used to it, and it immediately gave you that sense of comfort, like, oh, look, you still have your routine going. And I remember every time I did this now as an adult moving abroad helped so much. Just having that little routine helps
yeah,
really a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
Great
yeah.
examples. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a client who she said two things that really stick with me. One, she said like and she moves a lot. She said everywhere I go, I create this little corner in my house where I bring my ritual things,
Yep.
like my, I don't know, photos of my family or this little pot where I put a plant or the candle, and it's like a little corner that makes it feel like home. Even if you live in a huge apartment where you don't even have furniture yet because you just moved. And the other thing she said is like a big part of her identity is running. So she brings her like running shoes everywhere, and that's how she explores the city.
Mm.
This is a big, not just routine, but also like a ritual. And this is how she has connected with other people. And this is, of course, part of, being healthy. But it's what keeps her grounded. So I think this concept of bringing things that keep you grounded, even if you are in a place where everything feels very uncertain, those would be these islands of certainty, maybe. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful examples as well. It made me think of, our children are grown now. So, Manuel, it's also tying back to you being a child who's grown up overseas. And in one of the more recent moves that we had, they were no longer living at home with us, right? And I almost put home in quotation marks. And when they visited the first time, they were just sort of wandering around our apartment. And then they made that comment like, oh, I see all the stuff. It's home. This is our home. And yet it wasn't the family home on the same street in the same town that we had always lived in, that they had always grown up in. But that corner tally that you were mentioning of the special things, it creates that anchor. It creates an anchor for us. And even if it's just a few things that you pack in a suitcase and then create that little spot, it can make a world of difference. So I really like that.
And I guess one question that I'm thinking of to, bring it all together is now that we know there are certain strategies, certain routines, certain things you can do to, feel that sense of safety, comfort when you do feel that uncertainty, that overwhelming feeling of moving to a new place, being new. And that's like we discussed today, totally normal, and we've all experienced it. But now, I guess the question could be, does that, um, feeling of belonging, does it come back? Because I think sometimes in these moments where you might have these routines, but I bet for some people it still feels so permanent. So
Yeah.
I can never get what I had when I was at home. And when I'm talking home is probably where they grew up or whatever. Right. So
Yeah.
that's like that open-ended question.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts around that. I do believe in this. If you choose this lifestyle or you choose to leave your home country or
Mhm.
you're moving around, there's going to be loss, there's going to be grief. And again, these are things that, from a counseling therapy standpoint, we push down a lot. And what we see as clinicians and working in this field is the importance of finding safe spaces to open up about this,
Mhm.
because if you carry it around for too long, I mean, ultimately it can cause damage, right? To how you're feeling and to have you completely off center. And as Tali mentioned, different symptoms start showing up. You feel like you can't function. You feel like you have to go home, but then where is home? So then we get back in this existential conversation. So yeah, that's one thing. Tali, I don't, maybe you would like to add, just continue with that.
I would like, there's this word that comes to my mind, which is resilience. I think this process of adapting to a new place builds your resilience so much, but it brings growth pain. It brings a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
It brings a lot of loneliness, isolation. And something I see a lot is now it's so easy to be connected with your people from home, with your devices, that it brings like this like instant comfort because you're in contact with, I don't know, your family or your friends, but you are avoiding the fact that you are in a different place, and you are avoiding the discomfort that it takes to go outside, I don't know, buy groceries in a place where you can't even read the labels. And at the end of the day, that's delaying the possibility of belonging. Or you go into like just the expat bubble, which is fine, but there's no integration necessarily. So if you're looking for belonging, I think it's important to find a balance between the comfort that you get with certain spaces and activities, but also like how much of, I mean, if you're planning to stay and belong, like how much of the language are you learning, and how often are you going to the local coffee where you meet your neighbors, for example. So I had a client the other day who said like they've been in a city for, I don't know, 5 years. They don't speak the language. They don't know their neighbors, and they're still struggling, you know? So I think this possibility of belonging comes with discomfort, and you have to go through it. I don't know if that makes sense.
So much sense. I think
Mm.
that the discomfort that we feel when we make these moves, and again, this discomfort can continue to last for years into a posting, not
Yeah.
necessarily over in 6 months, because you're constantly, even within the same place,
Yeah.
finding or being even pushed into new situations where there's a lot of discomfort. And I do believe it's so important to recognize that, and then to be able to reflect on, as Tali mentioned, the resilience and the strength that you've built and how you've adapted and how you've grown.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think exactly. And I to close it off, I would say that's exactly what I would tell someone who is going through that, and me having that experience as well, is how, like you guys mentioned, it really is like growing that discomfort muscle
Mm,
by going through these hardships. And the great thing about it is when you really do try to grow that discomfort muscle with time, you do reap the benefits of what you said. Not only are you more resilient, not only um, do you have that ability to deal with that discomfort, you then also can reap the benefits of, yeah, maybe having learned the language, maybe having, you know, learn more about a culture, having friends in a completely different part of the world. And so then you realize, wow, this is so worth it. But sometimes it just takes that step to, allow yourself to feel discomfort, allow yourself to feel uncomfortable, and know that that is completely normal. And with the right tools, you can,
Yeah.
you know, make it. And yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, you don't have to force it. I see people struggling because they feel like this is a big move and I have to stay here forever. And they're going through so much pain, and maybe what makes more sense is going back, and that's fine. And people see it as a failure, but it's not. Like,
Mhm.
you tried it, it didn't work, and it's totally fine if you feel like home is somewhere else. Maybe it's where you
Mhm.
are from. So it's
yeah.
also like, I don't know, like finding your own journey and being okay with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all of these experiences expand our world, expand how we see ourselves, build the muscle. I really like that idea of building that muscle. So if heading back to your home country is what makes the most sense, you go back stronger. You
Hmm.
know, you go back with an expanded worldview, and who
Yeah,
knows what that opens up for you in your life.
yeah.
All right. We can cut it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, great
Okay,
topic.
perfect. Yeah. But I can, yeah, edit the last part
Okay,
anyways.
I'll stop
It was
recording.
hard to